Hi everyone, Callie Bear here. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to be tackling a really fun tag today by Syvlie over at Tarot Magpie, and it's Taromance Tropes, which is a really fun name for the tag. And I also think this is a really interesting way to think about our decks, looking at the through the lens of different relationship styles or different ways of coming into a relationship. Fun little bit of information here. My camera battery is at 69% as I started filming this, which I feel is kind of appropriate when talking about lovers. So do with that little bit of information what you will. So yeah, there are 10 prompts, and honestly, there were a couple that I sort of struggled to find decks for. They were a little more tricky for me, but for most of the tags, I could have gone overboard and just shown quite a number of decks for each prompt. And I just thought this is cuckoo banana pants, so I'm just going to have to limit it. So I've limited it to 2 decks per prompt, just to try and keep this video in a sort of reasonable length of time, so that it's not just, 3 hours of me going on and on and on, because I could quite easily do that, to be honest. So yeah, we're going to just jump straight in with the first prompt, which is enemies to lovers. A deck, style or system you've insisted just wasn't for you until you realised it was. Well, anyone that's been watching my channel for any length of time will know that I used to shit talk the fuck out of Marseille and those ugly ass fucking decks, but no more for a long time now. It will be, what are we, 2018, August, September 2018, so 6 years this year. I got bitten by the Marseille bug, and I can I speak? And I think it's really funny that I just used to not even like just think these decks are ugly, but like actively just really dislike them. It wasn't just like, they're kind of ugly. It was like just hell no. And the deck that started it all off was the New Choice Tarot de Marseille, which is very pretty and very modern, has lots of beautiful colours. But the reason I wanted to show this Jean Noblet by Jean-Claude Fleur-Noir is because I have also come to love and appreciate the more classic Marseille deck with the the very limited and quite muted color palette a lot of the time. I don't really have any like facsimile kind of Marseilles. That's something, a gap I would like to fill eventually with a deck that's at least one. I've seen some nice Gasmans that I've had my eye on over the years that would be appropriate for that. But yeah, I love me some Marseille, and my Marseille and Pip collection, even, not just Marseille, including sort of Italian style decks and just sort of random Pippy kind of decks, has grown a huge amount in the 6 years that I have been reading with Marseille, learning Marseille, studying Marseille, having a love affair with Marseille. So yeah, I just think that it's really funny that I used to be like, oh hell no, and now I'm like, so much yes please, give it to me. The Marseille that I'm currently sort of really jiving with is the Gay Marseille by Charlie Claire Burgess. That's my current squeeze, as it were. And then for a style of decks, collage. Digital collage especially, but just sort of collage overall, which is weird, right? Because I enjoy doing collage. I enjoy making collage, analog collage. I use collage in my art journaling and other kinds of artwork. Oh, this is a very, very glossy deck. This is the Voyagers Tarot. And I don't know. I've come to really rather like them. So this Voyagers Tarot, at first I wasn't sure, but there was something about it that was like drawing me in, so I nabbed a copy because it's not particularly pricey. This isn't an original version, this is sort of a contemporary printing, a contemporary edition of this deck, on the glossy cardstock. And I have the large book that goes into more detail about each card. There is nothing in here in these cards that is like there by accident. Everything is very specifically there for a reason, which I really like. It's very symbolic rich. There's a lot to mine in each card, and I just think that you could spend a lifetime with this deck alone. But yeah, I never really thought that collage decks were for me. I still am not a massive fan of digital collage. I tend to find that I'm drawn more to the analog collage. But you know, it's not like I would say I would never get a digital collage deck. I think I have one or two in my collection. In fact, I know I have one or two in my collection. I don't want to say I think I do. I do. So yeah, but this one is the one that sort of draws me in the most. I mean, oh, love it. This, I don't know what, right, I've been doing a very slow rewatch of Star Trek The Next Generation, and for some reason I think of this as the TNG deck, and I don't know why. It's, I mean, like, because you've got all the planets in the wild suit, and it makes me think of the intro to TNG, and then, like, I don't know, there's just something about it, like that one that I showed with the crystals suit, this particular one, like that just looks like something that you would see the crew of the Enterprise stumble upon. Some kind of like sentient crystal, you know what I mean? So yeah, this gives me TNG vibes. Anyway, let's go on to the second prompt. Okay, so prompt 2 is Friends to Lovers. A deck you used to like well enough, and then one reading deepened or changed your relationship with it. Again, I have 2 decks for this one. The first one is just your old box standard, lovely Morgan Greer tarot. This is the tin version. I don't actually own a full-size version of the Morgan Greer. This is one of my go-to travel, like on-the-go decks. That I grab and read for people with. This has given many readings for family and friends over the years. Oh, what are you doing in there? Naughty. So yeah, when I first got this, I was like, I just want like a Smithwaite deck, but that isn't Smithwaite in a tin, because I did like the look of the Morgan Greer, but I didn't think it was doing anything revolutionary. But there's just something about it when I did like a particular reading in the early days of having this deck, and there was just something about it that just made me fall even more in love with it and just become, and I've given so many readings for so many people that are important to my life, especially before I had access to, you know, before we started getting more diverse decks and inclusive decks, that I was able to, you know, read for people with on the go. You know, this was one of those decks that just was read with, can I speak? What I'm trying to say is that I gave so many readings to so many people I care about with this deck that I ultimately, it means a lot to me even because of that, if that makes sense. And yes, now there are decks that I have which I feel more represent more people in my life. So I will also often take the Next World Tarot. I have the pocket edition, and that, you know, I gave some really great readings at the park in the summer last year with that for friends who could see themselves in it. But this one still, for a good few years, this was a real, like, this did the job, and I do still read with this deck, and it means a lot to me. So yeah, there's that. I feel like I'm really struggling. On full disclosure, I have been struggling to film a video for days. I had batch filmed a bunch of videos, and then I've sort of run out of videos, and now I'm back to needing to film. But I'm really struggling with energy and pain issues, health stuff, and so it's really crimping on my ability to film at the moment. So yeah, I'm just trying to, it's a bit like pulling teeth, but I really wanted to do this tag because it was so much fun, but I'm quite low on spoons, and I'm very brain foggy, so if I'm stuttering or struggling to get across what I'm trying to say, or I use the wrong words for things, I apologize. It's just how it is. That's how my brain is at the moment. And the other deck that I thought to pull out here for this one was the Ostara Tarot. I thought this, I never got this when it was in the indie version, and when it got picked up mass market I was really excited, but I didn't end up buying it for a good while. I think I got this in the spring of 2018 maybe, I can't remember. And yeah, I really like the color palette. I know that there's 4 different artists, there's 4 different art styles, but they gel really nicely together. There's a lot of cats in this deck, but there's just something really, I don't know, I can't put my finger on it, but when I read with this deck, it feels, I don't want to say effortless, because it's not, because it does deviate somewhat in some of its interpretations of a Smith way, but it just, something just clicks. There's something about the way, like this for example, this is one of my favorite strength cards ever. It just sings. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it was like one particular reading that sort of changed my relationship with this deck. It was more just sort of like, you know, as friends to lovers can sometimes happen, where you start hanging out and then you're like, oh no, I've like fallen in love with this person in a like romantic way. And it was more kind of like that, rather than an instant, oh, I just had this one reading and it suddenly I was in love with it. It just sort of snuck up on me. That's sneaky, creepy, uppy kind of love, as Tim Minchin would describe it in the intro to one of my favourite love songs ever, which is his You Grew on Me, which I think is a very fun and sweet but also kind of gross love song. I'll see if I can remember to post it down below, because it really sort of summarises the way that I sort of view love and relationships. Okay, so let's get into the third prompt. Okay, so prompt number 3 is Forced Proximity. A deck you used for a month, took on holiday, made yourself work with for a while, like that's the prompt chops off there, that changed your relationship with it. So for me, I have again 2. The first one is going to be the Smith-Waite Centennial, or just the Smith-Waite in general, but this was my first proper like Smith-Waite deck. I had the Shaman Caselli tarot that we get in the beginner's tarot kit, with the book by Juliet Sharman Burke, and I have spoken about having that bought and rebought and gifted that set away multiple times, because I've met people that want to also get into the tarot, and I've been like, here, have my copy, because I would read with the Osho Zen for the most part of the time, and I never really gelled or sort of fell in love with the Shaman Caselli deck. I just, you know, was using it for study purposes, but I realised in order to study the Smith-Waite, I really should just get myself a Smith-Waite. And when I saw the Centennial for the first time, I was like, there's a Smith-Waite that I can stomach. And it's really funny now, because I don't just stomach it, I absolutely love it. And subsequently I have, you know, a number of Smith-Waite, you know, actual sort of Pixies artwork decks, the other one being another fave being the Dirty Pam. And yeah, I kind of fell for it, and it's it was a slow burn. I sort of was working with this. I wasn't really reading for myself or anyone else with this. I was working with this to like finally knuckle down with a Smith-Waite deck and study it, you know, properly, because I had worked with the Shaman Caselli deck, I'd worked with the Tarot Illuminati deck, I think possibly before I even had this one. Was it before I had this one? I can't remember. I just can't remember things anymore. And I was like, no, let's be serious and like get a proper copy. And yeah, the rest, as they say, is history. It was it took me a while to really fall in love with this deck, but when I did, you know, I love that when the edges just get all grungy from just working with them. I've got a nice, like, what's the word? I don't know. I guess it's dirt. They've got nice dirty edges. Dirty. So yeah, and then I very much like the Smith Waite. I decided to go, let's see what all the fuss is about with this old Thoth stuff, right? So I bought myself the Thoth. I got the deluxe version because I originally was like, well, I will just trim it down and like I will have, you know, and still have a nice big image because the borders take up so much room. And this was, a lot of it was off the back of hearing Anna, Astral Lady Tarot, talking about, you know, her Thoth greenie and really going on about. There was a couple of other people that were talking about Thoth at the time, although my memory is really shoddy. I can't really remember who they were at the moment. And I sort of, you know, I got some books. I got the classic old Milo Ducat book, which is a lot of fun actually, and a couple of others, and yeah, and I started working with it and I was like, yeah, I mean, I can see the artwork's really quite lovely. It's quite pippish again. It's not a Marseille obviously, but and I just started to be like, I get why people actually like this deck. I wouldn't say that I'm au fait with it. I feel like I still need to do a good chunk of study before I would class myself as a Thoth reader. Like, I fully class myself as someone that can read Smith Waite and Marseille. I'm a Thoth reader. I'm sorry, I'm a Smith Waite reader and I'm a Marseille reader, and you know, I read other decks that kind of do their own thing. But when it comes to like a system, I wouldn't say that this is a system that I feel comfortable with. But I do really like the cards, and actually the first card pull that I did with this before I sat down to do some study, it was so beautiful. Like this one card reading was so intense and impactful, and just it really hit me in a certain way, and I was just like, I don't know, it just gave me the bug, the Thoth bug. So yeah, that's the second one for that prompt. Prompt number 4, soulmates. When it was just meant to be a deck that you fell in love with immediately. Oh god, so I've just knocked that. I was just struggling to read. My glasses, my goodness. Well, there was only going to be one deck for me for this the first deck. There's like one immediate deck that comes to mind, a deck that immediately comes to mind. And anyone that knows me well enough will know that it's going to be the Tarot of the Magical Forest. Oh my goodness, it's so cute. This deck is so special to me. I loved it the moment I got it. I mean, I loved the artwork, I loved the deck. It was gifted to me by my partner. Like, it's just, I love it. I did not love the multiple language borders. But even that didn't deter me. So that's how you know it's love, because I still loved it despite that. And that's what true love, that's what true soulmates are, right? You love people, you love someone despite their flaws and their foibles. It's part of what makes them them. And, you know, you love them warts and all, right? So yeah, this one just is my all-time one and only. Oh my god, could you imagine just like a Marseille version in this art style? Oh, I would just, oh my god, I would love that. That would be so cool. But yeah, this deck has my heart. Oh, I mean, this is the sweetest strength card ever. Again, another one of my favorite strength cards. The little bunnies. I have a friend that I wanted to do a reading for, and this is another deck that I would take out and about, because it's especially since, well, I used to take it before it was trimmed because I had less decks back then. I only had about 7 or 8 decks back then. But also because it is now, once it was trimmed, it was small and easy, a bit more portable. But a friend of mine is absolutely terrified of bunnies, just like Anya from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and they were like, please don't read for me with that deck, because I think I had 2 decks with me at the time, and they were like, I pick the other deck, please don't read with that bunny deck. And they were the first person I'd ever met who legit had a phobia of bunnies. So yeah, it's definitely a thing. So yeah, this is one of my soulmates. Choosing a second deck to show for this was so difficult difficult because There are so many that I just absolutely adore now, that I have in my collection, that I go to again and again and again. But I narrowed it down to the Fifth Spirit Tarot, again by Charlie Kleber, just getting a mention again here. I've had this deck almost 18 months and it's constantly been in play. It's just, I just love it. And the moment I saw it, before I had even, because this used to be an independently produced deck and I wasn't able to get it at the time for a number of reasons, so when it got picked up mass market, I was so excited. And I think Tom Benjamin got a copy. I think he showed, it was his video that I first watched where he was doing a comparison between the independent version and the mass market version, and I genuinely prefer the mass market version. And I was just like, oh, so I put it on my wish list. And then the very lovely Sandra over at Whispers of Avalon picked this up for me at the beginning of last year, gifted it to me, and I just was, and secretly, sneakily sent it to me as a surprise. And what a pleasant and beautiful surprise that it was, because it has become a very much loved, worked with and cherished deck. So thank you, Sandra, for bringing this deck into my life. I just knew that this, I just knew, looking through this deck for the first time, that this was going to be a deck that I was going to work with forever, as long as I had it, in my possession. I knew I wanted to keep it forever. You know, you never know. You can't, sometimes decks get ruined because you spill things on them, or they get lost, or what have you. But what I mean is, as long as I have this deck, this will be one of those decks that I work with all the time. And there are a handful, like at least more than a handful of decks that I view like this, but I had to pick one, so I picked this one. So we are going to go on to prompt number 5. Number 5 is Slow Burn, a deck you didn't have the best first impression of, but the more you worked with it, the more you liked it. Now, if I'm getting a deck, it's, 99.9% of the time, it's because I've already looked at a number of walkthroughs usually and decided that, yes, I like this deck is for me, because I'm not really in a position most of the time to be able to just purchase decks just to see. I need to be a bit more careful with my coins. I wanted to get these decks for a reason. They were on my wish list, but then when I got them in my hands, and my first impressions, for the most part, I really liked them, and I have walkthroughs of both of these decks on my channel, but when it came to reading with them, it was a little more sort of rocky, and it took a bit of time to get into the swing of things. And the first one I'm going to show is the Wild Unknown Tarot by Kim Krans. This is the independently produced version, so it's chunky. Some of the cards are a bit different, and the coloration is a bit different for some of the cards. And yeah, I mean, this deck is beautiful. I love it. I love the artwork. I love the sort of use of color and line work. I love that it's full of animals, because I love animal decks. But because it was so different, I think it was probably the most different deck I'd ever picked up. I'd had the Osho Zen, which sort of does its own thing a little bit, but now that I have that knowledge and understanding of Smith-Waite, I can really see where the Smith-Waite inspiration comes from, and where they've sort of worked their ideas into it through the lens of Smith-Waite, with that deck. The Canon Read Witches Tarot, which again kind of does its own thing, but I was never one to really read with that one, despite the fact that I've kind of have a love for that deck now. I had the Shaman Kinsella, which is basically a redrawing of the Smith-Waite. I'd had a couple of other decks, and this one just deviated from all of that. There was, I think this might have been my first like nature/animal deck ever, and there's quite a pippishness going on, and so yeah, I really found it tricky to like bond and read with it. And it's funny, because I think persevering with this deck and putting the work in actually was worked in my favor when it came to finally learning to read with Marseille and Pip decks, because some of these cards are case in point, very, very pippish. But yeah, I love this deck. And actually, I do have the pocket version in a tin, and I prefer that. I work with that one a lot more. It's an easier size for me to shuffle. It's portable, it's cute, you know. And although I do prefer the original card art and coloration of the original, I don't mind the recolorations, and the fact that the other one is small and cute and more portable sort of makes it win out for me, because this is quite chunky. The cardstock is, it's not the mass market printing of this. As I said, it's the indie version, so it can be quite tricky for me to riffle shuffle. And then the other deck is the Tarot Collectibles Trip in Wait. I was so excited about this. I can't remember if it was like a Kickstarter or an Indiegogo, or if it was pre-order. I can't remember, to be honest. But I was so excited about this deck. And then, you know, I did the unboxing and I liked it. I think, I can't remember, I might have expressed in that video that it didn't go as far as I wanted with regards to the trippiness. I got this in lieu of getting another sort of retro, sort of 60s 70s groovy psychedelic deck that was not only indie and very, very expensive, but it also turned out that the artist was hella problematic. So then I was like, well, hell no. And so this was like an ersatz version of that deck for me. And so I guess I was kind of hoping to get that vibe off of this deck, and that wasn't what I was getting from this deck. And, you know, I persevered. You know, the groovy weight I think goes further with the psychedelicness, but I don't actually like it being borderless. If they did a bordered version of the groovy weight, that would be awesome, because I feel like with the really bright colour artwork and the fact that it is a Smith weight, having the white border works. My ultimate for the tarot collectibles when it comes to these is the black light tarot. That would be the one that I would want the most, but again, I don't have it. Maybe one day. One can hope, one can dream. But yeah, I persevered with this one, and actually I know it's not as trippy as some of their other decks, and like the ones with the glitter, like Syvlie showed a couple of their sort of glittery tarot collectible decks, which are just stunning. I would love a glittery one, but yeah, I've come to enjoy this one, and I'm glad that because I nearly moved this one on and I didn't. I stuck with it, and yeah, glad that I did. Okay, prompt 6, opposites attract. This deck is not your usual style, but you love it anyway. Oh my god, this deck, I have often lovingly referred to it as visual vomit, and those of you who've been watching me for a while will know immediately which deck I'm talking about, and it is the Tarot Illuminati. I remember when this deck came out, I was watching interviews with Eric C. Dunn. I watched interviews with Kim Huggins, who did not only the guidebook that comes with this deck, but also the sort of companion, the like chunky companion book that you buy separately, which I really rate. I really recommend that book, honestly. I'm just gonna have a quick sip of water, because I'm talking myself hoarse. No. Yeah, and I was just like, hell no, digital collage. It's got everything, including the kitchen sink. And then one day I went to Mysteries at Covent Garden when they still had the 2 shops on Great Monmouth Street near Seven Dials, RIP. And I saw they have samples of the decks that they have in stock. They had the version that is ungilded and has a slightly small black border. It just comes in the tuck box. And I just sort of had a look through it and I was like, oh my god, am I like liking this deck? And I was like horrified that I was like, do I? And I was like, no, actually, it's too much. No. Anyway, I go home. I ended up picking up a copy of the Deviant Moon Tarot that day, which I had my eye on, but hadn't specifically gone to get it that day, but I ended up picking it up. Glad that I did. And I couldn't stop thinking about this bloody deck. And I kept looking up pictures and watching videos, and I was like, I don't know. And I remember then passing through Covent Garden. I thought I'll just go and have another look, and they did have a copy. And so I had another look through the physical deck that they had there in the copies section. sample section, what am I going to call it. And I was like, oh God, I don't know. So I popped it on my wish list, and I don't know whenever it was, but it was for my birthday. And my partner got me a copy, the big box copy that has the gilding. And yeah, I I found this was one of the decks between this and the Centennial Smithwaite. It really helped lock in the Smithwaite meanings for me, because I'd always been sort of quite, you know, they'd always been a bit nebulous, or they just sort of had bits of information in my head, but nothing sort of, I'd never done like a really intense study with it. And this and the Smithwaite Centennial, between the pair of them, and probably the Magical Forest, those were my three like Smithwaite. So I had like a classic Smithwaite, a really cute one, and then I had like a really like over the top one. And it was a nice selection for hammering the Smithwaite system into my brain. And yeah, it's just so extra. And yeah, and it's so not, again, this is digital collage, right? But not in that sort of, it's not made in a way that looks like collage. Does that make sense? Like, you get collage where it's like using a collage to look like collage, and then there's collage that's used to make it look like, I don't know what, I can't explain what I'm trying to say properly, so I'll just stop. But yeah, so I was just like, I don't know, and I ended up loving it. And another one, which is more recent, which is from watching Living for the Dead, the ghost investigation show, the queer ghost investigation show. There is a guy on there called Ken Boggle, and he works with a very well-loved, very well-worn copy of the Golden Universal Tarot. And I was just like, this is so not, I don't like the, oh, I've just got it all upside down. I don't like the Universal Tarot generally as a rule. I do have a mini version that I use for like my tarot binder, because it's just so small. Those Lo Scarabeo mini decks are so tiny. But yeah, it's what I mean, this is so tiny they work perfectly for a tarot journal. Sorry, I didn't finish my sentence there. And I kept seeing this being used in that show, and I was like, and because he was often reading in sort of ambient light, I was like, oh, it glows so beautifully under like dim lighting, and kind of like much like the Golden Tarot by Labyrinthos, which I also have. Is it the Golden Tarot? I can't remember stuff. Ugh. But yeah, and actually I've edged mine in black. When did I get my copy? I got it for my birthday with birthday money or Christmas money. So I've had it for a few months now, and I really, really enjoy it. This one shuffles so nicely because it's that like really bendy Lo Scarabeo cardstock, and the card size is not too big for my hands. And this is one of the decks I pull to like riffle shuffle to keep my hands busy whilst I'm playing tabletop RPGs online, if I'm not part of the role playing in the moment, or if we're in combat and it's not my turn and I'm trying to pay attention to what's going on, but I need something to fidget with to help me pay attention. This is one of the decks that I grab to shuffle with, because it's an easy shuffle. It's really satisfying. So yeah, I really, really love this. And it's just, you know, I was always like, I don't really like gaudy, blingy, over the top decks, but holy moly, I guess I kind of do, because both of these decks are those things. And if you, I mean, even if you look, right, they're just so extra. Even the backs are so extra. And yeah, I really enjoy them. So that's those ones. Prompt number 7, blind date. An impulse buy, a gift, or a deck you got without much research but ended up really loving. Now, I don't really have many decks where I have not looked into them and I'm like, oh, what's this? And then I just buy it. A lot of the time, my impulse purchase would be a deck that's been on my list for ages, but I wasn't planning on buying a deck that day, or I've been in a bookshop and I've been like, oh, you know, there are a couple of impulse buys that I have in my collection when I, you know, wasn't around on TarotTube as much and didn't have a channel, but they're not decks that I absolutely love. Like the English Magic Tarot was a impromptu purchase at my local bookstore years ago. I didn't plan on having it. Was one of the just only decks that they had in stock, so I just thought, meh, I just need some retail therapy, and like the deck's okay, but I don't love it, so I have to like love this deck. So this is the blind date, and one of them is, you know, again, I said both of these were on my wish list, but I wasn't planning on getting them the day that I got them. The first one is the Zombie Tarot, and it's so much fun. I have to keep moving. I need to keep moving the light because it's getting darker and cloudy and rainier, yeah, that's making the light. You don't need to know that, that's boring. Yeah, and I was at MCM Comic Con, I think it was like 2014, 2015, and they had this deck for a tenner, £10, for the kit, for the set. It comes in a really fun big themed box, and I had seen this deck about and thought it was really fun. I love spooky stuff, I love mid 20th century style, and I was like, and it's a tenner, let's get it. And I was just buying it thinking, yeah, it is quite a fun, silly novelty deck, it'll be fun to work with around Halloween, and sort of just spooky season generally, the autumn months. And oh my goodness, this deck, the people that created this deck really knew what they were doing. I've said this multiple times about this deck. It on the surface seems very silly and fun and flippant, but actually it's really well thought out and put together, and I just really, it's obviously dark humour, it's very darkly humorous, but it's also making some interesting points as well, and I really enjoy it. I'm really glad I just decided to pick it up on that day, because there are decks that have been on my wish list for years, but I never get around to buying them because I'm rarely in a position to like buy decks, honestly. I usually wait until I get money for Christmas or birthday, or if someone buys, you know, if like my mum will be like, what do you want for Christmas? And sometimes I'll put a deck on there and she'll get me one. Sort of like last Christmas she got me the Fyodor Pavlov because I wasn't going to buy it for myself, but she bought it for me. So, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, I just it's a fun deck. And yeah, mine's been customized. If it looks kind of rough, it's because I literally mixed up some paint to look like dried blood and then handled it, and then also covered my hands in like a neon yellow paint and handled it so like it had been infected with toxic sludge and blood from a zombie attack. So yeah, that's that's why my copy looks super messed up, and it's all of the edges as well are all grungy and bloody and slimy, and that makes it really mine and love it even more. So there's that. And then the other one is again a deck that was indie and then got picked up Mass Market, and I had it on my wish list, and then it was on sale for a silly amount of money, and I was like, well, it would be churlish not to pick up a copy, and so I did. And it is the Kawaii Tarot, and I just, yeah, there's just something about it that's really, I mean, it's obviously it's cute, it's kawaii, and I like the simplicity of it. I like the pippishness of it. I like the breathability of it. I like to call that sort of breathability, where you've got lots of sort of space for the image to breathe, to sort of jump out at you. I like busy decks as well, obviously, because I've shown a bunch of those, but yeah, I have the one that's got the typo. I don't know if it's had subsequent printings where it fixes the typo on the 9 of Wands, where the 9 of Wands actually only has 8 wands, or 8 candy canes rather. But yeah, I just like the simplicity of it. It gets the point across really easily. You know, like, you know, for the Chariot and the Wheel, two quite interesting ways of depicting something that's rolling round, moving. You know, the only thing that is more trickier is the court cards, because there's nothing other than having the title, even the crowns. Like, obviously the shield, that's a knight, right? A knight, right? Let's find another one. So here the Queen has dots on the crown and the King has a line. The Knight has a shield. Let me find a page for you so you can see. It's, of course, now I can't bloody find one. Sod's law, isn't it? Hang on, come on. I mean, for death, look how simple. Gets the point across. Bloody hell, come on. Boring. Get to it. Here we go, page. They have, like, I don't know, do they all have halos? I don't remember them all. They do, okay, they do. They all have halos, I guess because it denotes innocence or youth. I don't know. So but there's nothing, you know, there's nothing in this to me that donates page or cups otherwise, other than having the page of cups written, and that's the only thing about it. But it's not a deal breaker because we do have the titles on there. I mean, my ideal version would be that there would be something that did make it a bit more obvious what suit it was, so that you could completely remove the titles on these court cards. But I guess it doesn't matter, because I'd love to have been able, although it wouldn't work if you cut these down to make it even smaller. You'd still have, I've made that mistake on a couple of deck mods before, where some of the majors and the courts have titles bands and the minors don't, so you cut off some of the title bands and then realize you fucked up the deck because you can't do the same to the minors. Whoops. Okay, so the 8th, let's go to the 8th prompt. Prompt 8, second chance. A deck you planned to get rid of that worked its way back into rotation, or a deck that you did move along and ended up repurchasing. The only decks that I've repurchased are the, when I didn't get rid of it is because I'd really messed up the edging on one, because I'd originally edged the Raven's Prophecy in a pen that was fine, and then I re-edged it because I wanted it to be metallic in this like paint pen, but the paint pen was sticky and it like fucked up the deck. It would stick to itself, the paint would transfer to my hands regardless of how many years it had been drying out, and in the end I just got so fed up of not being able to use my Raven's Prophecy that I bought another copy. And I was gutted because the copy that my original copy was a copy that my dad had bought me as part of a Christmas present, but I ended up giving them away one by one over the course of time with my tarot orders. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, I'm supposed to be talking about the decks that I did this. Anyway, the prompt. Second chance. So this is the Darkana Tarot. This is an indie tarot deck. I was gifted this by a friend probably almost a decade ago now, when I said that I'd really gotten into reading tarot again. She is super into tarot as well, and she had a spare copy of this. She said, do you have, and I'd never had, I think this was the first indie deck I'd ever had, and she said, have you seen this deck? And I had. You don't really see it around much anymore, but it's very dark. The lighting I've got here is not great because the lighting is changing as the sun's going down. And well, not the sun's not going down. There's dark rain clouds rolling in, which is really affecting the lighting. But it's really, I mean, it's dark. It's called the Darkana Tarot. It's got a very dark sense of humour. It's very, it's monochrome. There's lots of sort of splattery, it's very grungy, and I just wouldn't reach for it. And so I was like, well, what's the point in keeping a deck that I just never reach for? But I decided to give it more of a go, and decided, actually, you know what? I do get it. I just have to be in a very specific mood or headspace or doing very specific kind of readings to work with it. And so, yeah, it's not for all readings. It's not just one of those can do anything kind of decks like some of them are. But actually, it does kind of work. And it's, you know what, this deck makes me think of Attack the Block, the film Attack the Block, which is one of my favourite comedy horrors of all time. I watch that film every October. I rewatch it. Sometimes I rewatch it throughout the year because I just love it so much. It really reminds me of my childhood. Make of that what you will. But I can really see some of the people I grew up with in that film, and sort of the environment, like hanging out on council estates, and it makes me think of the black monsters, the black deep pitch black fur, and then they have those like glowing eyes and the white, the glowing, sorry, the glowing teeth, the UV glowing teeth. There's just something void about this deck, and those creatures were very void-like. And yeah, that just sort of speaks to me. And it's got very little splashes of red, and I edged this in red as well. So, but yeah, so that was one of them, and I ended up keeping it. And another one is the Seventh Sphere Tarot by Labyrinthos. I traded this for a pouch or two with someone a few years ago, and it's that plastic cards, quote unquote, cardstock. Oh, it's gotten all turned about again. What's happened? It's gotten spun around. Oh, it's that was when I was okay. And I don't know, I wasn't sure about it because the pips are very Marseille, right? They're like super Marseille makes it sound like a superhero. But the sort of silhouette court cards and majors, some of them sort of really deviated from the Marseille, and at the time I was really looking for more of a like Marseille layout for the court, for the majors and the courts, because I was still trying to learn Marseille, and so this wasn't getting as much play because although the pips are fine for that in this deck, it wasn't so good for learning, and so I was like, oh, it's not really earning its keep. But I hung on to it, and once I got the hang of Marseille, and didn't feel like I needed to be like in study mode all the time, this deck started to get some play, and so I decided not to move it along. And this is a real like spring summer deck for me. I nearly pulled it out for this spring summer, but I didn't because I worked with this last spring summer, and there were some other decks that I wanted to get some play this year. So I mean, it's there if I want to grab it, but you know, it's not in the box right by my altar to just grab. You know, like for example, this is very different to like a Marseille magician as an example. So but yeah, I'm glad that I hung on to it, because at the time when I was learning, I was like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to get the hang of this Marseille business, it's so tricky. And once it kind of clicked with me, and I was getting the hang of it, I was like, oh, okay. And I felt like I can sort of just like with Marseille, right? You just sort of rocking and rolling with all kinds of decks then. So yeah, that's prompt number 8. Prompt number 9, Unrequited Love. You really want to love this deck, but it just doesn't love you back yet. ... question mark. These are two decks that I adore, like the artwork, but they just do not. They are so like, don't want to read for me. I adore the artwork. And one of them is the Anima Mundi by Creeping Moon. I love the artwork for this deck. It is beautiful. I love an animal deck. I love the cardstock. I love the gilding. I love the colours used, the art style, the animals featured, the depictions, the fact that it's quite pippish. But I find this can be a really tricky read for me, and I don't know why. It's not as talkative as some of my other decks. I've never had like a really like, you know, when you get those readings where they're like really kicking you in the feels or in the teeth, depending on the kind of reading they're giving you. But look at this, bear. I mean, come on. But yeah, it doesn't. Oh God, I think Tom Benjamin has the original painting for this. I think he bought, or one of these Wands cards he got with the night sky. I know that he got the original painting. It's so beautiful. Look, I mean, how perfect. Look at the little beavers for the 8 of Pentacles. I mean, come on. But yeah, it just, you know, whenever I read with it, it's just, it can be quite tight-lipped, and that annoys me. Because I really, really love it. It's just so, I mean, it's like, she's just not that into you, Kelly. Just let it go. But I'm determined. I'm going to keep going. And the other one is a deck that I've had for a couple of years now, and it is the For Hexa Tarot by MJ Cullinane. And this is the only MJ Cullinane deck that I have. I would really like the Urban Crow Oracle. I really like that as well. I'm not like, just otherwise a lot of the time, this is the first one of her decks where the artwork sort of appealed to me. This deck just feels very, again, it doesn't often want to talk to me. I feel like I'm not tapping in, I'm not picking up what it's putting down, right? I can't seem to connect with it on the level that I wanted or hoped. And I don't know why. I did read with this quite a bit last year because I was just I was really like trying to give it the old college try, but it just didn't want to play. And so I'm like, okay, fine, we will put you aside and come back to you at another time, because I really like it. I don't want to have to get rid of it, but we will see. Watch this space, see what happens with this one in over time. Okay, so prompt 10 is Love Triangle. 2 decks that are in competition with each other in your collection, or a pair of decks that you always use together. And I thought I'd just do both, because why not, right? So the first one was like decks that are in competition with each other. So we have Les Tarot Gulliver and Les Tarot Noir. Actually, I've just realised that's really funny because they are both by French creators, French artists. And so yeah, you could even see actually they're quite a similar size. This is because my Noir has been trimmed. I would like to rebuy it so that I also have a full size version, but you know. And then I have, this has got its borders on it still, which keeps it around this size. They're both Marseille. They're both kind of moody and have like a really interesting take on the Marseille. Like the people in them are just really fun. Ooh. Are you all upside down and turned about? Goodness me, apologies. See, because you can't always tell with the with the old pips. Let's take that shine off of the Tarot Noir. So they're both doing. Oh, they're both kind of doing their own thing with the Marseille. They both have a really fun art style. There's a kind of a moodiness to them. There's a sort of certain kind of humour about them. You know, they're very similar size. They're by French artists. Well, they're similar size trimmed. This one being trimmed, obviously, not if it was the full untrimmed. And yeah, I find that when I'm looking for what this kind of vibe in a reading, in a deck, these two are always battling it out, and it's pretty even. They're pretty evenly matched. I feel like I haven't really favoured one over the other. This one, I've had this one longer than I've had this one, but since having both, I mean, look at the face on this guy. Oh my goodness. What side eye, my goodness. So yeah, the faces on the characters on both decks are just really fun. Another one that comes to mind is the oh god, that really macabre one. Tarot Macabre, is it? I can't remember. No, what's it called? Cannot remember things. Yay. Never mind. So yeah, these two competing, and the other two that I want to show are the 2 decks that I will often work with together, and they are literally sister decks. We have the first deck here, which is the Marshmallow Marseille, and then Tarot Sereine, which is a mermaid themed Marseille. They both have holographic backs. They're both a nice small size. I haven't edged either of them. I don't know why. I've never gotten around to edging them, but you know, the cardstock is slightly different for each, and they're pretty much the same size. It's a very negligible difference in the size for each of them. These are really fun to work with when I'm doing, for example, so like a lot of the time these decks are divided into the trumps, the majors and the minors and courts separately, because I use them for tirage en croix, and often with the tirage en croix I will my first pass, the first 4 cards, sometimes 5 or 6 depending on the variation of that reading that I'm doing. I will use just the trumps, right? But I sometimes want to do a second pass, so sometimes I will do a second pass with the pips and the courts to get some extra information with the majors, next to the majors. But other times I want to do a tirage en croix and I want to use the entire deck. I don't want to just use majors, and when I do that, I will often work with these together. So I will lay out my tirage en croix with one, and then I will do the second round of cards for extra information sometimes with this one, because I think it's obviously you can still use the same deck and you're not going to get any duplicates, but what I think is quite fun sometimes is that there's the possibility of duplicates coming up. I don't know why, I just really like that, and it's just fun to read with them together because they are sister decks. And there are a couple of other decks that I can read with together, like I have two different Triomphe Della Lunas. I have an original version and a paradoxical Rose. Those are two decks that I also will read together often as well. But yeah, these two they're more spring summery, so I felt these were more of the season, so I'm showing these ones. So those are the 10 prompts, but may I be a little cheeky and add in an 11th prompt. I may add my own little addition to this, the bonus 11th prompt, which is the Illicit Lover. So that's like a deck that you are tempted to go back to again and again, despite it feeling quite naughty, because you have so many other decks and you keep going to this like one deck that you just having this like affair with. Or the other way you could interpret it is a deck that just feels saucy, sexy little minx, I don't know, and I just thought I would show a deck for each of those interpretations of that prompt. So the Illicit Lover, the Sassaribito, or the Sassy Burritos, it is lovingly referred to. This is one of those decks that I have spoken about sometimes. I have to just put away. I need to hide it at the very bottom of my like tarot box stack, because I will just go to this again and again and again. It's such an easy reader for me. It's such a comforting reader for me. It's very aesthetically appealing. I love the characters in it. I love the interpretations in it. And it's just so tempting. And there are a couple of, there's a handful of decks in my collection that can fill this kind of role but this is one of the decks that I've had the longest, other than the Magical Forest, which kind of is one of those decks for me as well. But this is one probably I've had the second longest that is one of those I just go back to again and again, and I can hear my other decks going, what about us? And I'm like, but what about you though? Because Sassaribito, you know, like, let's turn it that way so you can see more cards. I just love this deck, and sometimes I'm like, I know I plan to do a reading with like a different deck, or a deck that I've pulled out for the week or the month or the season or whatever it is, and then I'm looking through the box of decks that I've pulled out and I'm like, oh no, they are upside down, what is going on? And it's all fucking bollocking turned around, and then, you know, I end up just going, I'll just grab the Sassaribito. And I think sometimes it can be like, it's just because it's so easy, it's like a no-brainer reader for me. Like, it's just comfortable, like a comfy old sweater. You know, you should probably like put something else on to wear instead of wearing the same comfy joggers all the time. But you know, the comfy joggers though, you know, this is the comfy joggers. That sounds a bit like an insult, but I mean that in the nicest possible way. So yeah, that's the first, like, the Illicit Lover. Like, you just keep going back to, you keep sneaking off back to it when you said you were gonna, like, you know, work with another deck or be, you know, I don't know. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, so there's that one. And then for a deck that just feels like a saucy little minx, a sort of like a saucy encounter, you know, there are a couple in my collection. The aforementioned Fyodor Pavlov being one of them, but the one that I've had longer is Le Tarot de Femme Erotique, this deck. Now, if you are offended by nudity, female nudity, please look away, but this is a saucy madam, and so I'm going to turn it over. And this deck is just, it is just naughty, saucy, but there's something very sweet and naive and like, I don't know, there's just something about this deck. I only ever read for myself with this deck. It's like one of my personal, which is why you don't really see it on the channel or on my Instagram. Well, firstly, because, you know, people will freak out about boobs, especially if they're photographed boobs, you know, they're actual tits and ass, you know, tits and ass and bush and all sorts. But it's just, yeah, it's just saucy, but it's not in this, like, there's a sweetness to it, is what I'm trying to say. There's something very soft about it as well. There's a voluptuousness about it. And it just feels like a really delicious experience reading with this deck. For myself, from personal experience. Yum, yum, yum. So yeah, that's the Le Tarot d'Éphémère for my little additional bonus of Syvie. I hope you don't mind me being naughty and adding in an extra one, but I couldn't help myself. So that was what, like 25 decks or something, or 26 decks. 2 times 11, 22 decks. 22, 23, 24, 25. 25 decks, because I showed 4 for prompt 10. So anyway, it doesn't matter. This is an hour long. I genuinely was like, I could get this banged out in 30 minutes, but clearly I was wrong. And also it took me a 12 million fucking tries to film the intro, because I'm so tired and so scatterbrained and so, like, just can't focus on shit at the moment, that I just couldn't get, and I'm really struggling to get my words out. I nearly canned it all again. I've been having that experience where I'm trying to film videos and I just can them, or I try and film videos, but I just don't have the energy to do so. So I really wanted to do this tag, and I'm glad that I did. And yeah, it's of course a very long video. So yeah, I will put the prompts down in the description box, along with if there's a playlist. I'll see if Sylvie's created a playlist, but I'll also put Sylvie's original video in the description box as well for you to go check it out. And I'm excited to watch other people's, because I don't think I've watched anyone else's. I think I've only watched Sylvie's so far. So yeah, thank you for spending some time out of your valuable day with me. That's really awesome. You rock. And yeah, I hope that wherever you are safe and well, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Ciao. And yeah, ascribing to a tarot deck or tarot decks or a system to the prompts. So there are fucking shits, romance, relationships, fucking bollocking shit, wank, tits, sticks. Ugh. Hello, Kelly Bear here. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be tackling a really fun fucking motherfucker with the first tag. The first prompt, which is enemy. I feel like this is I haven't version of fucking sweaty tits. Hi everyone, Kelly Bear here. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be tackling a really fun tag by Syvlie over at Tarot Magpie, and it's the romance tag. No, fucking shitting twat bags. Hi everyone, Kelly Bear here. Welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be tackling. And what the fucking. Hi everyone, Kelly Bear. Oh my god, I'm so tired from trying to film this bastard intro. Come on. Why are you? Oh, now it's gone all blurry. Fucking twatting shit.